you feel voice cut.
Hey, what's happening? This is your host Tinto, and before we get started on this week's episode, I'd like to give a shout out to 10D for 10 generous coffees. My goodness, I wanted to give you a shout earlier on, but I hadn't released an episode to do that, so here it is. Thank you so much. And your comment that reads, I can finally support and wanted to show you just how much I appreciate you. 10D, say less, man. Like, this is phenomenal. Thank you, and I appreciate you too. If you'd like to support the podcast in a similar way, please head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/feeling station and give as your spirit leads. Remember, there is nothing too small to support the podcast you've grown to love. Now, before we get into this week's episode, I need to give you a disclaimer. What we're talking about relates to a lot of what's happened in the last few episodes. In fact, the last 3 episodes, and it's about sexual abuse. And we finally got a professional on board to talk and mention the things we need to keep an eye out for. It does have references to a personal instance of the person who I'm interviewing. And just wanted to give you guys a heads up that if this is likely to trigger you, I suggest that maybe you skip this episode and we'll catch you on the next one.
I think we have a situation right here on the Feeling Station.
Welcome to The Feeling Station, a romantic family and friendship breakup podcast showcasing stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give you lessons from their experiences. Now, I hope you find today's conversation not entertaining, but really, really meaningful. Because for those who follow the podcast, you will know that episodes 241, episode 242, and episode 243 were really, really, really heavy. And what made them heavy was the level of sexual assault, abuse that came up in those episodes. And within that episode, I made a call out to somebody who'd be able to help from a professional point of view. And ladies and gentlemen, feelers, I'm very proud to tell you that we are joined today by somebody who heeded the call, put their hand up, and they're really, really happy to help. And I can't thank her enough for this. So just to get the ball rolling, I want to introduce to you a gender and diversity specialist with 10 years worth of professional experience in gender protection, safeguarding, and resilience building. Really at the heart and the core of everything she does, amongst many things, is she's a psychological first aid trainer. And psychology first aid sounds like a unique word. And maybe that's where we would like to start. Could you please tell us who you are and then just give us a rough idea of what psychological first aid really is?
Thank you very much. I would like to just call myself Nana.
Fantastic.
So psychological first aid is mostly, you know, how before you get to the actual therapist, one needs to be able to be given first aid. Same way as how when maybe you have an accident, what do you do before you get to the actual professionals? So this is a way of knowing how to identify triggers, knowing how to actually ground yourself and get to make an assessment. Or maybe when you meet someone who's going through trauma, just being there, not to like gaslight, to make it worse for them, but to get to a point where someone would now think, okay, at this point now I can go get the actual professional care. So it's what comes before you seek actual therapy.
I really like that because it's fairly obvious that if somebody's involved in an accident, say you cut your finger and it's quite deep, the first thing they're trying to do before you actually attended to by either a surgeon or the ambulance get to you is somebody administers first aid to reduce the impact of what is going on in that moment.
Yes.
It's very difficult to think that this is necessary when the mind is having difficulty and challenges. And maybe I'll just highlight this because where I'm from, which is Zimbabwe, I remember growing up hearing people saying, uyu ndeweku ingucheni. And what that basically says is there's a psychiatric hospital in Bulawayo called Ingucheni where people are meant to receive help for things that they have going on with their mind. And it was an insult. There's stigma associated with organizations like Ingucheni, etc., etc. But at the core of it, they're actually administering much needed help. And so hearing
Very
that there's
much so.
psychological first aid, I know is definitely a new thing for people. So before we really get into the depths of the reason why we actually got here, how did you become aware of first aid, psychological first aid? Because I only became, honestly, hand on heart, I became aware of it at my place of work now for the first time.
Okay.
Because there's a framework here that is known as mental health first aid. And within the organization, we got mental health first aiders. And when I was doing a bit of research, then the penny dropped. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So for you, where did you find out about psychological first aid?
Okay. It was something that I first heard of it during COVID time.
Mm-hmm.
So during COVID time, it was just in a way that, people were now starting to see how the isolation also has other triggers. So after the world a little bit opened up, in 2022, I was enrolled for the training to be a psychological first aid trainer. So we had experts that trained us. So there are other things that one can simply do. I know there's the technique, the 4778, if you've heard about it. Some do change and twist a bit. The breathing exercises that you need to do to stay calm. The centering and grounding, like when you wake up in the morning and you're not feeling okay, you take yourself and lie down on the ground with your palms down, you close your eyes and just try to breathe to center yourself and get to understand what's going on. So I got this training because of my line of work. So knowing that I usually work with survivors of abuse or victims of abuse, most times I know it gets the best of us. You tend to either sometimes center or feel very empathetic. And in the course of that, you may also tamper with evidence. So psychological first aid is just to ensure that, okay, the person that you're dealing with is a bit grounded to the point that when they're meeting maybe a therapist or they're meeting the police or they're the doctors, they are able to explain themselves and maybe record details.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah. So it's something that you try as much as possible not to make someone not to feel like it's their fault that they experienced what they experienced. Because mostly it's, like you said, there's a name for a mental institution in your country. There's the same for us too. That stigma that most times when things like that happen to you, especially sexual assault, it's either you were at fault, it's either you were at a wrong place at a long time, or maybe others will talk about racing or how you carried yourself. So it's in a way to try to make a person feel like this was not your fault. And you need to get the justice that you deserve.
That's amazing. When you listened to episodes 241, 242, and 243, how did they leave you feeling?
Oh, I remember I couldn't listen to the full episode at once. I had to break, pause, and also find a way of grounding myself. I remember hearing most of the things that I heard are things that in my line of work I've experienced. And some of the things that I myself have also experienced. So I understood when you said, when most of them were going to the end, you would actually say, I think you really need help.
Yeah.
And for most of that, it was like that. So for me, I was like, okay, I think people really need to understand how to identify what assault looks like and how also to get help.
And I guess that's why we've titled this conversation Sexual Assault, Notice the Dangers and Know Where to Go.
Yes.
All right. So could you help us understand this a bit more?
Okay. In a sense, most times I think I'll start from like a younger age of psychology. Most times people learn behaviors. Society teaches people behaviors. Yeah. Young children are taught consent or not. So as you grow, there's some things that sometimes you normalize and others do not. So in different type of societies, you find others that have been taught so well that this is what consent looks like. And then you find others because of tradition, sometimes even religion, it plays a huge role. Others feel very entitled. And the fact that someone can say no to something is not something that people perceive. And at the same time, also, maybe if you grow up in a household where there's been a lot of abuse going on, and everyone is trying to paint flowers over that abuse.
Mm-hmm.
In your mind, as you're learning and you're growing up, sometimes you might feel like that's okay. I know there's statistics that actually talk about to say 10% of people that actually sexual assault people have experienced sexual assault themselves, or have actually witnessed it as they're growing up. So out of all the figures that come out, you might realize that you're also dealing with someone that faced something like that. Not to make excuses for anyone, because I think when you grow up, you need to now start behaving differently.
Yeah.
Which most times is not easy because people are not sometimes aware. But can I also say the lessons that I want people to take?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, first of all, like I'm talking about children. So if you don't make young people aware what abuse looks like,
Mm-hmm.
they'll make excuses for abuse. In listening to some of the episodes, I could hear people say, no, but on the good days, they're very good people. No, but I had done this, and then this person did that. It does not warrant it. And then also never be victim blame, so that you can make room for survivors to come to you whenever they're ready. I know in the UK, statistics have actually shown that a survivor will try to leave a minimum of 7 times on average.
A minimum?
A minimum of 7 times.
Wow.
So they'll try to leave, they'll go back. They'll tell you, I'm leaving, they'll go back. Most times people give up on people before you get to the 7.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's when usually you end up having people, you hear that, oh, somebody has committed suicide, or somebody has been killed by their partner, or maybe a young child has been killed by someone in the family. So survivors might be the one actually experiencing it, or the one in the family even just indirectly experiencing. So they will try and leave. But usually because it comes off as, oh, this is probably either my safe haven. What will society say because of the victim blaming? What will people say if they find out that I was going through this?
Yeah.
And then the other lesson being that a family does not mean keeping up appearances for children. I know in some of the episodes you'd hear to say, oh, I was staying because of my child. Or there was this event that my child was having and I had to be there to show up the face. And then in that context, you get abused. So know that abusers know at what point they can take advantage. They will use a point where you're comfortable, and at the same time also you probably would not want to scream because you're trying to protect maybe a child or a relative so that they do not see what's going on. And when in a black and white world, if another color shows just a glimpse, even if it's pink or it's red, it's showing in a black and white world, please believe it. Do not wait for when it becomes a whole Picasso.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, I get that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if a flag shows once, if maybe it starts with a slap, or maybe it starts with verbal, you need to note those things and see what's going on. And sometimes it comes off maybe also like it might seem like love bombing. Someone will say, oh yeah, no, I've gotten into this relationship. This person is taking care of me fully. They're doing this. And then you start noticing that they're controlling your movement. Start taking note. And also to know that forms of violence do not usually happen in one form. You either face it maybe financially, together with emotionally, or physically will come together with psychologically, or you might even experience all of them at once.
Yeah.
So there's no point in time where you might just experience one. Because usually if maybe you face some financial abuse, your emotions are also going to take into account that. So sexual assault, people go like, oh no, I was okay. He forced me. And I got to a point of saying yes. A coerced yes is not a yes. if someone has to push you to that point, that's not a yes.
That is very interesting because I know some people who say he slapped me just once. And then that's the physical component of it. And that's what they want to limit it to. But because that has happened, the moment soon after that, and maybe a few days after, you're still thinking about the fact that you were slapped. So now you're dealing with the emotional side of things. So it's not just physical abuse, but now emotionally you've got a new challenge.
And even without you thinking about it, the mere fact that you have to decide to make an excuse that it was once, it means your psychological part has taken account.
Yeah.
In my line of work, I've actually also met men that have actually been sexually assaulted and harassed when they were children.
Yeah.
By both men and women. So it could be older cousins, it could be aunties, it could be uncles, brothers and cousins as well. So at times it's an issue of them now, I have faced this, and then someone else should face it as well. For others, they tend to normalize. Oh no, at a certain age, someone told me they are teaching me how to know how to have sex as an adult, and they feel like they need to do that to another person. But it's not an excuse. When we get to be adults, we need to now start seeking help for ourselves. To say, yes, I've experienced this. Unfortunately, for men usually do not want to talk about it because how will society look at it? For women, yes, most times women will talk about it. But then the other thing, like I said, painting flowers over abuse.
Yeah.
They'll go and tell someone and they'll say, don't say this to society because society will know you as that person that was raped. Society will know you as that person that gets beaten up. So in most times, that's usually the case. And usually people make excuses. Okay, so they raped you, yes. But if you leave, who else will want you? I know in one of the episodes, the person said, I made you.
Yeah.
You are who you are because of me right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And others, like in the other episode, I could actually hear that this person uprooted their life and left the life that they know and work so that they can be another person. That is what abusers usually do. They will distance you from your support system. They will ensure that you get to a point where even those that might listen to you the minimum of 7 times, they get tired and say, no, I think this one wants this, and they let you stay. Yeah, and it's mostly an issue of, one, you're looking at your safety concerns. So where will I find finances, housing, my children's needs? Sometimes it's also emotional attachment, feeling like you have hope that things are going to change, or if I leave this person, then I don't have anyone else. And so isolation gets you limited from that support. And it also comes with manipulation and apologies, promises and also threats, because they'll tell they'll either say it was the devil, I didn't know what I was doing, or in that moment, maybe I was angry with you, don't you know, you make me angry to get to a point of doing this to you. And also sometimes it's also social pressures. In one of the episodes, it was the introduction by friends. Friends introduce you to someone, and that someone gets to abuse you. Yeah. So peer pressure also plays a very big role. And you could see that the ages of the people that were facing this, it started at an age where it's easy for someone to groom you.
Yeah. And all of these, you're pretty much describing the reasons why on average somebody tries to leave 7 times before they actually leave.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes I do ask the question, why did you stay? But it's often in situations where there hasn't been sexual assault. There may have been maybe some form of deceit, deception that continually happens. But this one is fairly clear with what happens with sexual assault. And just saying their safety concerns, that's one of the reasons why they stay, because they're wondering, what if they hurt me? And that's a real thing. Fear is a real thing. People stay in jobs that they're very unhappy with because there's the real fear that if I leave, I will have no food on my table.
Yeah.
So there's a food safety concern. This one here is a genuine safety about their own life. One, for starters, or if the life is not taken away, it's about the pain of physical abuse being exerted on them.
Mm.
And then you're talking about financial dependence, like the person is providing housing and income, or they're catering for the children's needs. And this is what I think came out in episode 243, where I ended up saying, hey, man, is there something we can do as feelers just to help this lady out and her kids? Because I was genuinely worried about the kids. And that's a classic case of financial dependence. And then you're talking about emotional attachment, where you feel like you're in love, or you feel like there's a hope for change, or there's some form of trauma bonding that is happening. You've mentioned the isolation, the manipulation, the social pressure that comes with stigma and culture. And I think stigma by far is one of the biggest things that we suffer from on the African continent as far as sexual assault is concerned with. The first question is usually, what did you do to deserve that abuse? Because the stigma comes across and say that a man wouldn't do this. No, Bamnin, which is uncle, or Bamkuru, again, which is uncle, wouldn't do this. What did you do? Why did you dress like that? You smile too much. And then the stigma builds.
And I wanted to say that most of the times it usually comes off with dressing.
Yeah.
But dressing has never been an excuse for someone to rape. Yeah. I know in Africa now people go like, oh no, it's not our culture to dress like that. Short clothes are not our culture. And it's laughable. I usually laugh when someone brings up that as an excuse, because I bring them to a history class to say, look back at our ancestors back then. Were they dressing? It was either a cow's skin just covering the front and the back.
Yeah.
And just walking. You'd see women just covering maybe the front, and everything else is out. But that has never been an excuse. If that was an excuse, then you'd ask yourself, why do people abuse children like that? And you'd look at statistics from also the parts of the world where women are usually fully covered. If dressing was an issue, why would then women face that? And at the same time, you see that even for men, on the other hand, if dressing was really an issue, would men come out and say that, I was harassed by so and so? The issue is when someone feels like they have power over you. They have access to anyone without any repercussions. They do not respect people's rights. And there's also a point where there are other people that also normalize abuse. They'll tell you, they touched your bum. That's nothing. Women do that. Or maybe, you sit with a woman and then they're busy touching a man's thigh. They're like, no, it was just friendly. People that sometimes even are overly touchy. People do not get to know that that's how some things start. Respecting people's private space. I know everyone laughs when I tell people that I'll ask you if I want to hug you. And please ask me if you want to hug me.
Yeah.
Do not touch my hair. Ask me if I'm comfortable with you touching my hair. You can't just run your fingers in my head because you think my dreadlocks are nice and you want to touch them. So it's that thing that people do not respect people's spaces.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's also even sometimes with financial, people assume that they own you because they finance your life.
Yeah.
And also, even in marriages, people assume that just because I got married to someone, that gives me consent for a lifetime. People laugh when we talk about marital rape. Imagine someone, is going through the worst time and they feel like, no, I'm at this point, I'm not able to have sex. And then someone forces themselves on them and they go and say, I've been raped. People laugh. They say, why would someone married say they've been raped? They are married. They consented, to a lifetime of sex. And in terms of some of the things I noted in the past 3 episodes, it's an issue of abusers introducing the victims to a lifestyle that will have them rely on them. So they will breadcrumb. Yeah, they will throw you breadcrumbs so that you keep going, and you keep telling yourself, I know, if I leave now, what will happen? I can't maintain this, then let me just sit around and just accept this as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And abuse is never to be glorified. And I know there's always been the Me Too campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movement that others assume that it's for clout. The
Yeah.
Me Too campaign is for them to say, listen, there's so many people that are going through this. Can we do something? Can we start changing how we behave? Yeah. I know for others, I've had cases where maybe a married woman faces abuse by the husband.
Mm.
Because of the African tradition, they go back to the mother-in-law or the sisters and get to tell them what they've gone through. And then now the family is protecting this person.
Mm-hmm.
Or even when you report someone who has assaulted you before, everyone will say, oh no, but do you know that you're going to destroy your life? A trigger warning, I'm going to give an example of something that I experienced.
Mm.
So there was someone that was sexually harassing me at work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Weird text messages at midnight, unfriendly touches. And then at first in my mind, I had already started like I was saying, you start making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I wasn't noting that I was making excuses for this person. And I started saying, oh, but if I do something, I kept telling him, if I report you, you're going to lose your job.
Mm-hmm.
If I say this, and people would be alarmed because he would mix, catcalling, yeah, body shaming in a way, very sexual comments at a workplace.
Mm.
And I'll be like, okay, if I tell on this person is married, he recently has babies, so it will affect the whole family. And here I am I'm a gender specialist. Maybe I should just teach this person and they will change. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying to, teach, to use the normal way of, I'm teaching this person to stop. But it got worse. I was actually home at, a work holiday over Christmas, and they sent me the most weirdest message at midnight.
Midnight?
Yes.
Sure.
Like when we were clocking, entering New Year, telling me the things that they wanted to do to me. And the things that they're like, oh no, one day maybe you should just think of me as the man that you want in your life, and then allow me to do this and that and that and that.
Mm.
And you know what happened to when I decided to report, and I kept telling people, like, finally now I want to report.
Mm-hmm.
The first words came from a woman to say, if you're going to report this person, we are all going to stop talking to you.
Oh.
Yeah. And indeed, something like that happened. They made the workplace hostile for me. But after I reported, other women started coming to me and thanking me to say, we never had, we never had that zeal and power to report this person. It's not just him. There are men in this company that put on wages.
Yeah.
And you can see that the cry for help was there.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm telling people that this is what this person is doing. And they're like, no, you're not thinking about his family. What if he gets fired?
Mm.
So that's what also the cycle of abuse looks like. It might not be a person that has actually experienced something and doing it to another person, like the 10% that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it might also be others that are actually just enabling it and just watching and standing by. You might be seeing that person is constantly sexually assaulting people, but because they may be your brothers, your cousins, your sisters, your aunties, you want to stay silent and not protect other people.
Mm.
Too many times we wait for when it hits home to do something about it. And I know, like, going through some of your listenership, I know I saw a few countries that sometimes you would think with the rights that we have in this world,
Yeah.
you would not hear about issues, of femicide. There's always, and I love how South Africa always comes up to say, there's this that happened. We stand up for this. And South Africa is one of the countries that has like reporting channels. I know there is an organization called Women for Change that's always up to speak. But one of the best that I've seen and asked the people that I are in my network is the TS Foundation. So they even have hotlines. Yeah. They even have like USSD numbers where you can locate where you can get help in the community that you're in. There's also even email addresses and calls where you can get your support. And for countries also like Kenya, they've got a few organizations. I know there's one called Usikimwe. There's Mukulu SGBV Center. They also have a national toll-free line as well. And I know also for Malawi has Yoneko. I know Malawi as a country, Yoneko is that if you go on social media on Twitter, you'd see that if someone says something silly, they'll bring up Yoneko to say Yoneko is going to come catch you.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, so there's that in different countries.
Yeah,
I know globally we have the protection against sexual exploitation and abuse and harassment technical working groups in different at different levels. But there are a few countries that have actually signed to it to say this is what we're going to do. But if you look at even the international instruments, you'll see that countries sign and ratify rules that are supposed to protect victims of abuse. They've actually been put mechanisms. Maybe the only fear for most part of African countries is, where will I go? Are there safe houses that are going to keep me? I know for countries like Ireland, for countries like Iceland, which is one of the countries I dream of living in because of how the safety part. If you report, this is where you go, this is how you're going to be helped. And even in other countries, there's also even desk officers for queer community. Germany is one of the examples. If you go to the police and you say, I am in the LGBTQI community, they'll refer you to that desk to get that support. But it needs support around the person and also within yourself to now start looking at how, am I ready to go and report? Do I now have the energy to face all of this? The survivor-centered approach where you need to, if someone comes to me and tells me that this is what happened, if it's not a criminal case, I'm going to ask them. If it hasn't gotten to a point where it's criminal, I'll ask them, are you ready for me to do something about it? Because if they're not ready and I put them in more harm, then that's also a problem.
Sure. I was just about to say.
Yeah. So I also have to take note to say, okay, if we go and report, do you have anywhere else where you can go whilst this is being handled? Do you have the support system? So that's also maybe to say the investment on protecting people that have gone through assault is very low. Because if we had safe houses all across the world, you wouldn't need to say, do you have anywhere else to go? Because if a person comes to me, I'll be like, okay, look, here's where you can go. Go there, there's shelter, there's food. Whilst this is being sorted, you have this place where you can stay. And to say, it's never too late to report abuse.
Yeah.
It's never too late to say, I've stayed in this situation for a very long time and I can't leave. And assault does not only happen in the home, it happens also in the workplace, in schools. I know there's talk about how people will be like, no, that person slept with their boss to get a job. That is usually assault, but people don't see it in that way. Because if someone consents to something because of their vulnerability, or you're extorting them because of a job, that is also something that's not supposed to be allowed. But people don't see it that way. Even if you go into universities to say, a lecturer told this girl to sleep with him for grades, people will be like, no, they're consenting adults. But once you have power over someone, you don't have to use it negatively.
Yeah.
if you use it negatively for your own benefit, and it also puts maybe other people also at a disadvantage, then that is wrong. But the understanding of people to say, this is what assault looks like. And it doesn't come in a one size fits all. It's not a shoe that everyone can be able to wear.
Yeah.
Some would say, if someone touches my bum or my boob, I'm very fine with it. The fact that you are okay with that being okay with you doesn't mean that when someone comes to you and say, I was assaulted, someone touched my boob or someone's like, you need to understand that it feels different for everyone.
It doesn't make it the standard, pretty much.
It doesn't make it a standard. And my definition of what is sexual on my body is to me.
Yeah.
You don't define what is sexual for me. If I tell you that, no, I don't even want you to kiss my cheek because it makes me uncomfortable. And then someone goes like, but it was just a peck. Yeah. So it doesn't have to always get physical and very, penetration and whatsoever. But if it's sexual in nature, even if it's just, weird comments that make you feel uncomfortable, that is something that no one needs to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the support that's supposed to be given. I liked in one of the episodes where the person that was talking was taken away out of the country by the family. It's not so easy. It's not everyone that will have that chance to say, look, you can move. But at the same time, also look that this is someone that's leaving their home, their identity to go to a place just because they want to feel protected.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to get to that point. So report, support, and also speak up when you see something. Yeah.
I really like how you've closed that out. You said report, support, and speak up.
Yeah.
And I just want to wrap it up by going over the lessons that you shared, which I think were really important. They came right at the beginning. Number one, you're saying that when dealing with issues about sexual assault, and again, this was titled Notice the Dangers and Know Where to Go. Number one, you're saying if you don't make young people aware of what abuse looks like, they will make excuses for abusers. And I think you've emphasized this over and over because you got into that situation yourself with the work situation. Yeah. So in a nutshell, you're saying if you have young people within your home, within your intimate space, or anywhere around you, make them aware of what abuse looks like.
Yes.
And don't be shy about it. Do it with your chest out. Number two, you're saying never victim blame. And this happens one too many times, and that's why people shell up. You're saying never victim blame. Make room for survivors to keep coming to you until they are ready to go further with their report.
Yes.
And that's what I'm hoping this kind of conversation is starting to do for people, bring that awareness for them to say, look, it's okay to go. And if you're one of those people who tends to victim blame, take that a notch down. Because that person really does need room as a survivor to let it out. Number three, a family does not mean keeping up appearances for the children. Where I'm from, we say bazotin or vanvanozotichi, and we're saying do not do that. For the sake of the child, call it out as it is.
Yeah.
And then I really like this next one where you say, when you're in a black and white world, another color shows up, for instance, pink, believe that it is no longer a black and white world. That is very profound. Because I actually visually imagined a genuine black and white world. And if pink does pop up, it will stick out like a sore thumb.
It will stick out.
And because it sticks out, pay attention to it. So if one day you guys are chilling and you've never had a slap and it gives you a slap on the face, that's your pink starting to show up.
Yes.
Treat it like pink. Call it out and do the right thing. And then the last one that you had there is forms of violence don't happen independently. You rarely face one type. That is really profound. Because it shows the many faces and how multifaceted this whole thing is, so you can't conquer it on your own.
Yeah.
Just as you're trying to feel like you've got on top of one, you're suppressing another, which will manifest itself when the time is right. So these, Nana, have been really, really incredible. I just want to thank you for taking your time to share these with us.
You're welcome.
I know I put you in a difficult position where you had to listen to what the episodes looks like because you've dealt with your own things yourself, and you even mentioned that you couldn't finish them. But all this information that you provided, I'm confident has helped somebody who might be battling what to do with the situation that they're in.
Yeah.
Would like to continue similar conversations. So if you have something that you'd like to chip in and share, please feel free to reach out in our DMs. That's reaching out and searching on Instagram for The Feeling Station. That's where we're most active, and we'll be in touch. I think you're about to say something, Nana?
Yeah, and also just to say, there's always movements and campaigns that are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people just, as humans say, oh no, maybe that group of people is beta, or you start making, jokes about it.
Mm-hmm.
Know that most times in those groups, they cry for helps. Mm-hmm. There's so many cry for helps in those groups.
Mm-hmm.
So get to know and see, and never shame someone who's deciding to speak up.
Yeah.
It could be on their own behalf, and it could also be on behalf of others.
Thank you for pointing that out. And to close it out, as Nana said, report, support, and speak up. You guys have been listening to another episode of The Feeling Station. I'm your host, Tinto, and I will catch you in next week's episode. Peace.
Tell me what you're feeling.
Satis on Daru Raini and Chagezai.
Tell me what you're feeling. Now that it's over.
Satis on Daru Raini and Chagezai.
Let me talk about my feelings. Let me talk about my feelings, yeah.
Urudoi motoru noto kujiziru amai.
Kujiziru amai. Love is a fire.
Urudoi motoru noto kujiziru amai.